everybody, happy to see you all again. Finally, I'm so happy to be back in the mountains after a long period behind my desk due to the government restriction here in Italy because of COVID. It's just wonderful to come to a location like this, the snowy Dolomites, and to start doing some proper landscape photography again. Today I'm here to test the new version of my favorite wide-angle Fujifilm lens. Two other lenses I always use in landscape photography, and one is the Fujifilm 50-140 that I reviewed here on my channel. The link is up here. And my second go-to lens is for sure the beloved Fujifilm 1024 f4. Recently, Fujifilm introduced version 2 of this lens with a global restyling and the additional weather-resistant feature. So I couldn't resist trying and compare it with the older original version. Okay, today I want to share with you some of my thoughts about that. Let's start with the new updates compared with the first version. Like the first version, it's a compact ultra-wide-angle zoom lens, especially if compared with the huge 8 to 16 millimeters. This second version of the 1024 weighs 385 grams, around 25 grams less than the previous one. The external diameter is 78, the length 87, and the filter thread is 72 millimeters. The first version, weather sealed, weighs 410 grams, the diameter is 78, length 87, and the filter thread is 72 millimeters as well. The lens is well balanced if paired with both the X-T4 and the X-T3, and in hand it feels like a prime lens. It also fits very well with the tiny X-T30. One of the first things that jump out is the completely redesigned lens cap. The one provided on the old model is never been quite secure and it comes off easily. So this is a very appreciated improvement. The outer barrel doesn't change in length, so although the inner assembly moves during zooming, this lens effectively has an internal zoom. The focus ring is light and smooth like the one on the older version, but on this version too the zoom and focus rings are slimmer, resulting in an overall weight saving of 25 grams. A small downside, there is still no hard stops at either end of the 24 centimeters to infinity focus range though, making it more difficult to set focus at those two extremes. Then Fujifilm removed the auto, aperture and the iOS switches and revisited the aperture ring with markings that bring it in line with most of the other X-series lenses that have a physical aperture ring. Now it has a more positive action and a lock button. In the previous generation, the aperture ring just spins forever and has no markings on it. There is a lock button for the auto aperture setting past the minimum aperture of 22, found on the underside of the lens barrel, which prevents the aperture dial from being inadvertently changed from the A setting if you happen to prefer using the camera body to set the aperture rather than the physical ring. You have to hold down the button first to switch the aperture to auto. The big new improvement most welcome to landscape photography is for sure the weather-resistant addition. The first version didn't provide any level of weather sealant, but to be honest, I never had any issue with moisture or dust. But a higher level of security in this respect is more than welcome. This new model also will fully operate in temperatures as low as minus 10 Celsius degree. I didn't have the opportunity to stress this new lens in a super critical environment, but in my experience with all the other red badge lenses I own and actually the old 1024, I've always been happy with the performances that Fujifilm gear ensures. Then the image stabilization in this lens is improved by one stop from 2.5 to 3.5 on Fujifilm cameras that don't have an in-body stabilization. Pairing this lens with an IBIS technology that the X-T4 provides or the previous XH1 or the new S10, this lens gets up to 6.5 stops of stabilization. That's really nice. Like the old 10-24mm, the new one has an internal focus EIF system with a very quiet stepping motor. Both with my X-T4 and X-T3, the autofocus is very fast and accurate. Thanks to the IF mechanism, the front of the lens does not rotate on focus, which is fundamental for me since I like to use the lens in conjunction with a polarizer or a neutral density filter intensively. Okay, I'll see you at the studio to talk more about the optical performance and image quality on the computer. Here we go. Welcome back to the studio. Let's have a look at the optical specs and the image quality of this lovely lens. The optical formula appears to be the same. Nothing seems to have changed from the old model. The Fuji 1024 offers excellent results for sharpness across all its range of focal lengths, with a slightly bias towards the wider angles. Okay, here I have few shots I captured in Venice, just for the sake of testing, nothing too fancy. These images are perfect to check the image quality and to see if there is any difference between the two lenses. To test them, I used the XT30 mounted on the tripod. So let's start with the widest aperture and the widest focal length, so 10mm f4. Here we can see the lens offers a general central region of almost tech-sharp performance, with a very small area of corner softness. The edges are somewhat softer at f4, but let's compare with the other apertures. And here we have f4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16 and 22. Let's zoom in. Here we go. And yeah, stop down to 5.6. The lens is almost tech sharp across the entire frame, with peak performance achieved in the 5.68 range. Here we can see that the diffraction limit sets at f11, but you won't notice any practical difference until f16 or f22, where generalized softness across the frame is very evident. I generally use the lens at f7.1, f8, where in my opinion it performs at its best. Then let's have a look at the 14mm focal length. Let's zoom in there. And as before, it's quite evident that diffraction starts to kick in at around f11 here. But generally speaking, the sharpness is still quite acceptable. Let's see here on the corner, down here. Yeah. And now same story at 18mm. There. The best performances are always around the f5.6, f8. Let's see here on the top right corner. There. Let's see here where we have more detailed. It's really good here. And then image quality at the maximum focal length of 24mm. Let's navigate the image from the center towards the corner, see how it performs. And yeah, as I said before, in my opinion, we will get wonderful results at almost all focal lengths, with the exception of 24mm, where sharpness is a little less impressive. Okay, and stopping down doesn't improve it as much. Great, and here a side-by-side comparison between the two models. Here on the left we have the new one, and on the right we have the old model. And it's very evident that both lenses are pretty much identical in terms of image quality and sharpness, contrast. Great. Before we move forward, I think that the info I'm going to tell you might be useful for photographers who are used to focus stacking. So I capture a sequence of images selecting different focus zones to see if there were any critical focus breathing. This parameter is quite crucial in order to get great results when multiple images blending is needed. From what I can see, without any auto alignment in Photoshop, the focus breathing is extremely minimal. Chromatic aberrations are not a problem at all with the 1024, so it's very easy to address them. Here we can see clearly some chromatic aberrations, especially on the corners of the lens of the frame. Okay, here in this side they are more evident there. So it's very easy to address them. We just need to select chromatic aberration checkbox and gone. But now I want to show you how differently Lightroom and Capture One work on the same file. I'm going to select the Remove Chromatic Aberration checkbox here in Lightroom, and if we have a look here, chromatic aberrations are still there, are not completely corrected. Okay, and let's see in Capture One. Done. Now they are completely gone. So in this respect, Capture One is way better, at least with this image. Let's see another example. So with this second example, we are going to see a completely different result. Let me zoom in here at the same zoom ratio. Okay. I'm going to select Remove Chromatic Aberration. Here we can see clearly we have some purple fringing and some cyan fringing here between the transitions here on the roof. I'm going to select Remove Chromatic Aberration and they are gone. Perfectly corrected from Lightroom. Let's see how Capture One performs, and I'm going to select Chromatic Aberration. There are still some cyan, green fringing here and some here. I'm gonna try to bring the fringe slider to the right, so I addressed the top purple fringing, but there are still some greenish cyan fringing between the transition here. So 99% of the time, both softwares allows you to achieve an excellent result, and they both neutralize the chromatic aberrations perfectly. But it's very evident how the two proprietary RAW engines read the Fuji files data in a totally different way, and how they can fail in some occasions. The distortion on the Fuji 1024 is well controlled, with slightly present barrel distortion, even at the widest 10 millimeters setting. There is some obvious fall-off in the corners of this wide-angle lens. The vignetting is essentially insignificant, I would say, for the lens. The overall performance in this respect is quite good, and it improves stopping down to f8. Let's see the before and after. Yeah, not bad. Bear in mind that Fuji embeds their RAW files with the lens correction data, and Lightroom and the others automatically apply these corrections during processing. In terms of Sunstar, to be totally honest, I've never been a huge fan of the Sunstar on the 10-24 millimeters. Before switching to the Fuji system, I was a Canon shooter, and the Sunstar provided by the 1635 f4 is absolutely stunning. Anyway, the Fuji 1024 produces a quite nice Sunstar when stopped down to f16 or f22. The newer version, like the older one, is susceptible to flare when shooting directly into the sun, but it's mostly well controlled. This new 1024 is a really nice lens to use, and the optical quality is absolutely wonderful. Optically, it's identical to the old one, so you get the same image quality from either lens. The 1024 is exceptionally sharp in the image center at f4 throughout the entire focal range, and you only need to stop down to f5.6 to get acceptably sharp edges too. Vignetting and chromatic aberration are practically a non-issue. Also, the autofocus system is fast and quiet. I would say if you would benefit from weather resistant, the improved optical image stabilization, or you find the lack of aperture markings an issue, then for around $200 more, it's definitely worth the upgrade. Okay guys, these are pretty much my thoughts about these wonderful two lenses. For other videos about Fujifilm stuff, check out the playlist here on my channel. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any question, drop me a comment below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao!